Welcome to the Feds, insiders bringing accountability, integrity, and reform to a broken bureaucracy. At Feds for Freedom, we value constructive dissent and healthy debate. The views and opinions shared in today's episode are those of the speaker alone and do not express the views or opinions of the U.S. government or any other employer.
Welcome back to this week's episode of The Feds. I am Stephanie Weidel. Does nutrient-dense food actually have the power to make our bodies healthy again? What would it look like for a school to serve students nutrient-dense food for their lunches? With a renewed interest in a healthy America, many eyes have turned to the ingredients in packaged food. But maybe it's the inherent packaged nature of the food that's the problem. Joining me today is Hilary Boynton, founder of the School of Lunch, an organization that provides the best of the best food for children's school lunches out in California and provides training opportunities for teachers and parents on how to do the same in their schools and homes. Hilary is also the co-author of the book, The Heal Your Gut Cookbook, Nutrient-Dense Recipes for Intestinal Health Using the GAPS Diet. Hilary, it's so good to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, what is your story that catapulted you into this nutritious way of eating?
Well, my story really was, kind of a long, drawn-out health journey of my own and my family's. I won't go the long version, but, ultimately I fell for fat-free in the 90s and really was rigid about that for a good decade, just was afraid of fat and avoided fat. I would look at the labels, and if it just said 0 fat, then I was all in. I didn't look at how much sugar or carbohydrates or what the ingredients were. I just cared about if it was fat-free. So that really took a toll on my body. I was an athlete and playing Division I soccer in college, and actually in high school I had stress fractures in both my femur bones and tibias, and I just think I was super undernourished, and went on to play college soccer and continued to do the whole carbo loading thing and afraid of fat. And really, I wanted to major in nutrition and fitness, design my own major. So I thought I had all the answers, and thank God they wouldn't let me, because I don't know what path I would have gone down. But through my, continued journey with food and trying to, I guess, maintain that rigidity of staying fat free. And I went on to get married at 25, and then at 26 found myself pregnant, and then miscarried shortly thereafter, and went on to have 4 more miscarriages in the next 3 years. So I had this whole 3-year bout with infertility starting at the age of 26, and that was really like, why am I not able to carry a baby? It was so heartbreaking, and all my friends were having babies, and I just was like, what's happening? And I'd never really heard about miscarriages. I didn't know what was going on, and nobody really talked to me about my diet. And same thing with my stress fractures. It wasn't like, is this girl deficient in something? And how can we boost her nutrition? So I wanted to do fertility treatments and ended up with triplets. So we first out of the gate with three babies, 2 boys and a girl. So I was like, great. 3 years of infertility, 3 kids, and, all is well. And then I thought maybe when they were 3, I thought maybe we should try and have just 1 baby. And I thought I would have to go back to in vitro, and boom, I got pregnant, and the pregnancy stuck. And then I had a beautiful 4th baby. And then when he was 6 months old, I found out I was pregnant again with my 5th baby. So all of a sudden I had 5 babies under the age of 4, totally overwhelmed. And I kind of woken up to food and wanting to feed them well and take care of them. And organic was the buzzword. So again, it was like, if it said organic, then I was like, oh, okay, then it's good. Even if it was organic pirate booty or organic cereal or Cheez-Its or whatever it was, it was just, if it said organic, then it was okay. So, but then my 4th baby, around a couple months old, was broken out in eczema head to toe. And that was really like my big struggle, is that I didn't know how to help this baby. And then I, of course, had all of a sudden 5 babies, and I was just like trying to help him and to stop the scratching. I mean, I have to pin him to my body for like 2 hours in the middle of the night. He was just like always scratching, and I did all the allergy tests and the prick tests and all the things and elimination diets, and nothing really seemed to work. And I finally put him on steroid cream and Zyrtec twice a day, which I didn't want to do. And sure enough, it took it away pretty much. And he slept through the night. And then as time went on, I realized that like if I forgot to put it on, then his eczema would flare. So this like my intuition was just like, this isn't really getting to the root cause. This is just a Band-Aid. And ironically, I had been trying to change the school lunches in my town in Massachusetts at this time because I had seen this like episode of Jamie Oliver, and then I discovered Alice Waters, and they were making changes in school lunches and school gardens and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like kids need real food. And, you know, growing food is so important, all this stuff. And so I got introduced to this woman who had tried to change the school lunches prior. And she said, I'll help you if you want to, if you want to try, I'll step back into the ring. She didn't get very far. And anyway, I went to her house and she was telling me all about this Weston Price Foundation. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And I happened to mention that my child had eczema, and she said, oh, you've got to put him on raw milk. And I didn't know what raw milk was. I was just like, what is that? I've been drinking my fat-free skim milk. And she told me that her son had asthma, severe asthma, and he healed with raw milk. And I was so desperate at this point that I was like, I'll try anything. And she and her family were like, we'll pick it up for you. They had this little co-op because raw dairy is not legal to sell in the stores in Massachusetts. So they would drop off raw dairy for me, and I put him on raw milk and then cod liver oil, and he was totally healed in like a matter of months. So that was my big wake-up call of like, what just happened? Like real food just healed my baby, when most of the doctors said he would just have allergies and eczema and asthma, and they just kind of run hand in hand. And that might be his lot in life. He might outgrow it. He might not. We don't know. So I was like all in. I just couldn't believe what had just transpired. And I woke up even to, just more nutrient-dense foods. And I went to see Sally Fallon speak, who is the head of the Weston A. Price Foundation. I'm not sure if your audience is familiar with the Weston Price Foundation, but do you want me to tell a little teeny snippet of
Yes, please.
what it is? Yeah, so Weston Price was a dentist in the 20s and 30s who started noticing some changes in his clients and people having more narrow jaw and crooked teeth and lots of cavities. And he just was wondering like what was happening. Why was this decline in our dental health and our physical health? And he and his wife traveled around the globe to all these non-industrialized little pockets of tribal people and communities that he went to in search of perfect health. And they spent about a decade traveling across the globe. And they found people living and thriving free of disease with beautiful broad bone structure and perfectly straight teeth and no heart disease and no cavities, no cancer. And he studied their diets, and they all had these commonalities across the board of these, local and nutrient-dense foods, and focused on the fat-soluble vitamins and animal foods. And they actually had fertility diets. So they had, special diets for people who were, the man and the woman that were trying to procreate, because their most important goal was to have a healthy next generation to carry on their tribe or their community. And so anyway, he noticed that once, one generation removed, when Rhodes came in came the white flour and the white sugar, in came the narrowing of the jaw and the crooked teeth. And now we're like 10 decades out from his work. And we have, nearly 60% of our kids with a chronic illness. And I think it's 93% of our population is metabolically unhealthy. Like we've just veered so far off these traditional foods as a foundation to health. And so Sally Fallon is a woman who started a foundation based on his work. And I went to hear her speak shortly after my breakthrough with the raw milk. And she was showing all these pictures. Dr. Price wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he documented with photography all these people. And she showed these pictures of these, beautiful broad bone structure and these bright white teeth and beautiful smiles and vibrant health and just this vigor of these people. And it just all made sense to me when she started talking about it all. And I just thought like, wow, like I've really been duped my whole life. Like I've just been given misinformation, and no one ever talked to me about diet for fertility or nutrient-dense foods or bone broths or raw dairy. Like it just all new to me. And I ended up walking out of the conference, and the Amish were all set up, and I was just like, oh my gosh, the Amish with all their raw dairy and sourdough breads and fermented foods and soaked and dehydrated nuts and stuff. And anyway, I talked to them about my raw dairy story, and they needed someone to run a co-op in Massachusetts. And I ended up running a co-op kind of like a private membership co-op because I wanted people to have access to these nutrient-dense foods. And so that was for about 6 years. And then now I'm like, oh gosh, now my story is getting really long. So I don't want it to go too long. But anyway, fast forward, I guess, we had other health issues in our family, just, based on our diets and a lifetime of processed foods and whatnot. And so we dove into the GAPS diet, which I was also introduced to through the Weston Price Foundation, which stands for the Gut and Psychology Syndrome and the Gut and Physiology Syndrome. So the gut-brain, gut-body connection. Somebody said to us, like, your whole family needs the GAPS diet. You need to heal your guts. We had a daughter with epilepsy. We had some kids with speech delays, a head tick and whatnot. So we dove in full force to this really healing protocol. And I ended up writing a book about it because I felt like there was a lot of information, but nothing really beautiful and inspiring to make me want to step into this potentially 2-year protocol of healing with 5 little kids and whatnot. So I wrote the Heal Your Gut Cookbook with Mary Brackett, who was my co-author and did all the beautiful photography. And then literally when I handed the book over to the publisher, my husband was diagnosed with throat cancer. And that ultimately brought us from Massachusetts to California. Yeah, so that like elevated our whole health journey up exponentially. And once you're faced with a diagnosis like that, it's, you're facing life and death and all these decisions and pressure, and it's very overwhelming. And so that's one of the reasons I am where I am today, is because I think prevention is so key. And anyway, we stumbled upon this little school in Topanga, California that had just opened. It was a nature-based school. And the chef there had just cooked up some fish that day that the kids had caught. And then she told me she wanted to roast a whole goat. And I was just like, our kids have to go here. Like, this lady gets it. And so we ended up getting into the school. And then as the school grew, they outsourced the food. And that's where I was like, oh, gosh, like, it was such a blessing to have somebody cooking these traditional ways. And then when they outsourced the food, I was like, we were still on the GAPS diet, and I wanted to maintain that. And I'd worked so hard to give them this leg up that I wasn't about to just start feeding them standard American fare. So that's when I became the snack coordinator. And then halfway through the year, took over the whole lunch program. And that was 9 years ago. So now that's where we are.
Before we get to the school lunches, I want to ask, how did you have to change your lifestyle to accommodate all of these sensitivities and allergies and all these health issues and all of the GAPS protocol that goes along with the healing process?
Yeah, the lifestyle, we really became very much I guess what they call an ingredient house. It was kind of like I cleared out everything and was starting to learn to cook and source locally, meet my farmers, talk to different people who were also in this area. The Weston Price Foundation was very life-changing for me in the sense that it was a community of people that understood this way of living and eating, and really like showed me the way forward, and I could connect with people and ask questions and learn from so many people. So our lifestyle totally changed, and it's hard because sometimes when you're the only family or the only person that's kind of like, oh wow, this is like really important and this, I want to go this way, and then your friends or your family don't really understand, it can be very isolating and cause a lot of friction oftentimes. So it's a delicate balance of kind of discovering how to feed your family and yourself this way without offending people or, kind of disconnecting from people.
Let me also ask, was your background in the culinary arts?
No, I've never been to culinary school and never worked a day in a commercial kitchen. So it's just really self-taught and just this desire to learn. And then as soon as my son healed, I was just like, I want to shout this from the rooftops. Like, everybody needs to know that food is medicine and that we can really take control of our kitchens and bring the joy back to our kitchens. And it's quite joyful when you start to see changes in your family and you feel better and have more energy. So
give us some examples of the foods that you started bringing to that school.
Well, I first started out as the snack coordinator. So I got my foot in the door there. And I just went to town headed to my local farmers markets. And of course, I'd written the book. So I had an idea of how kids should be nourished. And my farmers were really super supportive of helping me with like bumper crops of tomatoes or zucchini or lettuce, whatever. So I would make little lettuce cups or zoodles or tomato soup, like all just anything that I could find from the local food system. I would bring back, and anything interesting and fun and beautiful fruits. And I would make bone broth for snack or beet kvass and have them do shots of beet kvass or sprouted nut butters and little, like I'd bring a banana like branch with little mini bananas on it. Anything that was new and different that maybe the kids hadn't seen, I would bring to the snack table and set up. And so it sort of became this really fun environment for everybody, including the teachers, to show up for snack and see like what was Miss Hilary serving up this day. And then like halfway through the year, it kind of was obvious that I was really into it and wanted to take over the lunch program. So I was given the keys to the kitchen over Christmas break, and I had really a week to kind of turn around the kitchen and get it going. But that was when kind of the systems rolled in of like, I knew I wanted to be incorporating bone broths and organ meats and pastured chicken and, grass-fed beef and raw dairy and fermented foods and all these, beautiful nutrient-dense foods, and soaking and sprouting our nuts and seeds and grains and legumes, and adding things like pig's ears to the beans or trotters and all these things.
What?
Yes, I know. Sally Fallon came to our school and we had a pig ear in the beans, and she's like, just that alone, if you just did that one thing, that's, changing the lives of these kids. And actually, Weston Price had noticed that he did a study on school lunches, and with just that change in that one meal for children made a huge difference in their health outcomes. So we know that school lunches are so vital and so important. I really it took a while for me it was really like just bootstrapping it in the beginning, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I'd never cooked. It was like 150 people or so, or I think it started at 110. And I just pulled in some people to help me, and we just put it together and developed our systems of how the kitchen would roll one day to the next.
I'm sure we're going to have a couple people listening to this who have heard organ meats given to school children and asking, how in the world did you get that into their bodies? So would you give us like an example of a dish you have made to get those organ meats on the table and into those children?
Not that hard. I mean, it's more like if the kids have an aversion to it or they don't know about it, that they're more squeamish of it. But I really tried to be kind of walk a fine line of like saying too much or but then empowering them with the information. Like we start out with like, we have that pluck seasoning. I mean, this wasn't in the beginning because pluck wasn't around yet, but now we'll put pluck seasoning, which is an organ blend that's like seasoned, and we'll put it out, they can put it on their hard-boiled eggs or in their broth. And they'll say like, well, what is this? And I'll say it's pancreas, liver, spleen, kidney, and heart. And they just look at me like, what? I'm like, yeah.
And
do
you would
think
just dust.
So they dust it on.
You would just dust it on. Okay.
Yeah. And then
do you have them do
it
it themselves?
Yeah. And then, or I can do it for them, but they like it. And then that starts the conversation of like, wow, I just ate liver and spleen and kidney and heart and pancreas. And I say, yeah, like we're not just going to eat, steaks and burgers. We honor the animal by using the whole animal. But we also, so then, they hear these words, and it's about bringing that language back and normalizing it. And then we really often will buy our ground beef with heart mixed into it, and then I'll cook up some liver and just chop it really fine and throw it into like a bolognese sauce or a taco meat or a chili. Any ground meat that we have, like pork or beef, we usually throw liver into that, and then the beef has the heart as well. And so that's mostly what we do. We make our bone broths fresh every week, and so we put chicken feet into the broths. We use all of our carcasses from roasting our chickens, and yeah.
And what is the benefit of something like the feet? I've heard this before, and I don't know.
Well, the gelatin is going to be so good for all of our joints and our hair and our skin and our nails and digestion. It's just that beautiful gelatinous, from like the padding of the feet or anything that has a joint, right, is got that cartilage in it, and that collagen is going to melt down into the gelatin, and that's what we need to support us.
So how much time per day are you spending in the school kitchen preparing these lunches?
We're usually there. We have 4 chefs typically per day. And we're there from 7:30. We open at 7 until about 4:30 in the afternoon. But we have a very complicated system too, because we have kids that it's a nature-based school. So different cohorts of kids are going out on the land Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So we do a sandwich bar for those kids that pack their lunch. And then we have to do a sit-down meal for the rest of the school. So it's a much more complex system than just lunch at 12. You know, we have a nutrient-dense snack at 10. And then 3 days a week, we have the sandwich bar as well. And then we have lunch at 12. And then we do an after-school snack for the kids that stay after as well.
And I'm guessing you make your own sourdough bread for those
We do.
sandwiches?
Yes. So when I went off of the GAPS diet, we didn't have bread for 2 years. And I said, well, if I'm going to have grains again, I'm going to make sure I learn how to make traditionally prepared sourdough bread from 100% whole grains. And so we get the locally grown grains, and they're freshly milled here in Pasadena, and we make our own bread. And it's been something that I've stuck to and been really adamant about sticking to. I haven't added any white flour. I mean, I know a lot of sourdough bakers add the white flour, so they want it to have that airy crumb and that familiarity, but I want the kids to really know what a proper traditionally prepared sourdough bread tastes like. And it's delicious. It's not familiar to them, to most of them, because, you know, most bread is mostly white flour. So it's been something that I've held to, and I think the kids, you know, they adapt and they understand. And our dishwasher who came in, he's from Iran, when he first tried our focaccia dough, it's the same as our bread, but a focaccia dough. And he said, oh my gosh, this reminds me so much of my grandmother and the way she made bread. And so I just want them to have that knowing and that, you know, real, true flavor and the nutrient density. We're not stripping it of any of the bran or the endosperm, so it's got all the fiber in it. And so I just have remained true to that.
So what have been some of the reviews from the children on eating this way during their lunches?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is that the culture, my son's lacrosse coach said the other day to us parents, he said, culture precedes success. And I thought right there, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why we're successful, because we've established this food culture and a kitchen culture at the school. And so pretty much all of the kids are participating. Might be a few that pack their lunch, but the staff is participating, and everyone's going through the line, and everyone's trying new things. And there's this joyful exchange between the lunch, you know, the chefs and the kids. And so it's become a way of life. It's normalized to everybody to participate and eat this way. And so there's not a lot of pushback. The little 5-year-olds, when they first come in, can be a little bit like, you know, it's unfamiliar. And I usually just say, give me 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks with your kids, and I promise this will become normal, and we'll hug them and high five them and get them to try new things. And it becomes, you know, normal for them. So most of the kids, I would say, you know, they all have their favorites and the things that aren't their favorites, but they're really joyful. I mean, somebody asked me the other day, do you have like many kids that suffer from depression? And I said, not really. No, like they all come joyfully to the line and excited for lunch. And so, yeah, it's kind of like, I feel like the way life should be. You know, it's really,
Yes.
it's great.
Do the teachers or administrators of the school who have prior knowledge of what like a public school would be, have they noticed differences in these children?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons we started the training academy, was because quickly when I started, everyone, the kids, the parents, the teachers were all having these like light bulbs go off. You know, there's like, what is this? You know, like the bone broth, and I'm eating lunch, and then I'm not even hungry for dinner. I'm truly satisfied, and the kids have energy, and we're all going back to the classroom together, and, you know, satiated and lit up instead of, you know, ready for a nap. And so I quickly realized like everybody needs this information. Everybody needs to know more. So we started the training academy. But yeah, there's a satiety that's hit where these kids are feeling energized. You know, it's not like a big blood glucose spike and then a crash. There was a little boy who said the first year in 6th grade, he said, I used to feel like this up and down all day long, and now I just feel like this straight across. So that's a sign that his blood glucose levels are stable, and he's, you know, got the proper energy, the proper nutrition to keep him fueled for the next, you know, half of the day. So
Have any parents come to you and said, um, "I've loved so much this way of eating. I hear my children come home talking about this. I'd like more information so I can do this in my own house."
yeah, a lot of parents are really interested in learning. I mean, some of the kids go home and say to their moms, like, "I wish you could cook like the school chefs cook," you know? And so it's like, it's so funny because you never hear that really, right? That school food is better than the
Right.
home cooked foods. So the moms are like, "What are they doing over there at that school?" And we have parents at lunch where we invite the parents in once a month, and roughly once a month, and we usually try to bring in a farmer or food purveyor, somebody that we love and support, and highlight their crop or whatever they, whether it's meat or flour or spices or salt. Like, we have all sorts of people come in, and the parents get to experience the joy and the food, and meet, somebody from their local food system, and sit down and take part in it with their children, with the community. So a lot of them come to our training academy and are always just asking questions. And I'll work with the parents as well. If the kid's struggling with something, or if they're a picky eater, we kind of like, it's a united front, so we can hit it from all sides, from home and at school. And then we're working together to help this kid get up to speed.
Mm. How do all the five senses play into eating nutritious food and loving nutritious food and the healing process?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always say digestion starts with the eyes. So if you and real food doesn't take much of anything to be beautiful and nutritious and delicious. It's just like so vibrant and beautiful. But if you really make things presentable and beautiful, like I always say to my chefs, like, put a little zhuzh on things and have some intention with the way that it's served, and like highlight the beauty. So I give an example of like when we put hummus out for a snack, I don't want to just be like a bowl of brown spread. So, we make it like a nice little kind of spread, and then we drizzle olive oil, maybe some za'atar and a little fresh flake salt or some chili flakes or something, and then put a few flowers on the edge, and it just makes it like really beautiful and appealing versus, just something that's kind of plain and bland. So, and then the kids, we get them helping us at snack, whether it's like shucking corn or taking peas out of the pod, and just using their hands and trying things fresh versus cooked. And I was saying earlier, like, a flimsy carrot versus a crisp, crunchy carrot, like if you snap it, or an asparagus, or so really just getting them involved as much as possible, helping out with little tasks, and then seeing what food looks like from, we'll take almonds that are in their shell, and then almonds that are out of their shell and raw, and then soaked almonds, and then soaked and sprouted almonds. And so we get them to see like the process of, what an almond looks like straight off the tree versus what we're giving to you in your trail mix. So just having them involved in that process of seeing things and tasting them, and, I guess listening for the crunch or whatever it may be.
What are some issues that you've run into preparing food like this and in a school setting, even though it is an outdoor school, but in a school setting for this many children?
I guess it's just a lot. It's a lot of labor. So we've invested in chefs, because you can't do it with just two people. I mean, we'd have to cut so many corners, but that was really important to me to, the food cost is actually not, it has gone up actually in the last year or so for sure, but it's comparable to the public school lunches, but we do spend more money on the staffing. So the preparation of the food is, where I think the cost goes up. But in terms of serving foods, we're able to develop the systems. Without systems, it becomes challenging, because it is, like making your own sourdough bread is going to take more time and more labor. But if you can roll it into the system, everything that we're doing, I say this for home cooks and school cooks, like a lot of these nutrient-dense preparations, like things they take time, like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. I like for the bread, it's like, you're mixing it for 5 minutes and then it can sit for a half hour. And then you got to mix it again for a few minutes and it's going to sit for a half hour. So same with like, fermentation. You're going to be making a sauerkraut, say, and then the time does the work of fermenting it, or bone broth. You throw it together in, 10 minutes and then time does the work of making the beautiful broth. So it's about the systems, I guess.
Have you or anybody else you know gone to a public school and asked them to consider doing their lunches in this way versus just all the packaged food?
We have, but we've gone to private schools and public schools. I mean, without a change in the dietary guidelines, it's very difficult to make a change. And you have to really have an enlightened head of school who wants to make a change, especially in the private schools. Public schools, we really have to change the dietary guidelines in order for schools to be nutrient dense and delicious.
And you're talking
nutritious.
about like government dietary
Yeah, the
guidelines.
USDA dietary guidelines they're not following the current updated science. And so we need to remove the cap on saturated fat. We need to have more proteins, good salt, full fat dairy, and we need to get rid of all the ultra processed foods and to lower our carbohydrate intake. And so it's really challenging to go in and you just can't go in and change a public school system because they're required to follow the dietary guidelines. And then even in private schools, people are also following the dietary guidelines. And even if they're not, they're usually typically working under the standard American diet and the sourcing from Cisco's, and they're not supporting, as much of the local economy. So it's a big change, and whoever's making the decisions has to want the change. And they have to really be willing to put that investment of time into making the change. And that's what's really challenging, because people just are so busy that they're not willing to put the time in, or they can't quite see that it's possible. They don't believe that it will work. Like, we had a food service director come up to our school and visit, and I was like, we'll just open her mind. She'll get it. She'll see it. And I think in the end, we cracked open her heart. She was blown away that these kids were eating all the food and laughing and running around, and would ask them what's your favorite food, and they would respond with this or that, and we love school lunch. And she just didn't believe that it was possible. But once you see it, it's you can't unsee it. And I know with every ounce of my being that it's possible and it's necessary. We have to move in this direction. So we need to get into our heart space and look at really what we're doing to our children is driving them into the medical system. 30 million meals a day are being served to our kids across the country. And it's a huge opportunity to really change the trajectory of their health in the most beautiful way, as opposed to really setting them up for a lifetime of disease. So
yes. And the issue is, it's not even just the lunches. So you think about the kids get in a 5-day period, they've got maybe 3 meals. And that's 15 meals a week.
Mm-hmm.
And a 5-day period, and 5 of them are going to be lunches. I mean, this is huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge amount. It's a third of what they're getting.
Yeah, it's 30% of their meals. But some kids are eating most of their meals. Some kids, this is the main staple of their nutritional intake, So it's really important.
Yeah, it's not just a meal to throw away. It's just a lunch. But also, children are not. Schools are one place to look at, but also you think of religious houses, so churches,
hospitals.
Hospitals. That's right. You think of, I mean, I don't know,
all the
Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically throwing away such a great opportunity for good food. So you mentioned lifestyle. Now, I had been homeschooling. I homeschooled for about 5 years until recently. And then my children entered a private Christian school. And I found that for a good amount of time, homeschooling, it was easy to feed them nutritious foods, because I would take it from the refrigerator, or I would go outside and pick something. And, it was easy to prepare. But now I'm packing their lunches for 3 children every day. And it gets really hard. And I find
Feel the pain.
Yes, they're actually eating worse than they were. And not only that, the school may not follow these dietary guidelines. And so all of the treats are definitely not in this line of eating. And so I'm feeling more than ever they're eating horribly.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I remember my husband saying, because I have the 5 kids, and he'd be like, just pack them all the same thing and send them on the way. I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
No,
This
it
kid
doesn't.
likes this, and this kid doesn't like it, and this kid. And so you do this whole thing, and then half of it comes back, and then you have to throw it away. And then you're having these conversations like, why did you throw away your food? Or, why didn't you eat it? And, oh, well, it got warm, or what? It's just like I said earlier to you, I'm like, I'd rather cook for 150 than pack 5 school lunches. I mean, it is doable, but it's a lot, and like to vary it up. And I mean, you can use leftovers, but it just depends on the kid too and what they're going to eat. And I usually say, like, parents, it's like as soon as your kid goes off to kindergarten, you start to see the onslaught of like the treats and the junk, and around every corner someone is giving your kid junk food from every soccer practice or ballet performance or whatever. And you're like, stop it. It's constant for us moms to be the gatekeepers of their health. And like, it's just like you said, it's normalized that like now you leave a soccer game with like a goodie bag. And it's like, really? Like, can't we just go back to orange slices or whatever, go home and cook a good dinner for our kids?
All right. So Hilary, help us. What are some good, nutritious, easily packable lunches that we can send with our children in a busy life?
Well, I would say, I mean, get the protein and fat in there. So if you can do some sort of meat and cheese and some nuts possibly, like at least get that good quality proteins in there and the fat so that it will keep them satiated. It depends if your kid's going to eat like chicken salad or tuna salad or egg salad or hard-boiled eggs or salami and cheese. If you can do some nuts and maybe include an apple, you could do carrot sticks and hummus. It just really, like I said, it depends on the kid, but I would say easy things are the simple protein and the good fast. Cheese is always like a really super nutrient dense food to send them with, but again, keeping things cold. Like I've had like melted cheese come back and all the things. So, and then if, the kids that often come from, or the parents who are from another country are packing these beautiful foods for their kids who, it's like a culturally normalized thing to have a beautiful leftovers or what, like a full meal instead of just, a little container of meat and a little container of cheese. They're having more of a composed meal, and that's normal. But it depends on your kids and what they will eat, because ultimately you want them to eat, right? But you have to kind of train them to know that they need that protein and the fat and some good carbs, and that they have to eat to have energy, right? So some kids, if they don't like it, then they won't eat anything, and then they're starving. And so there's all sorts of, nut butters are good that you can include. A full fat dairy. So if you can pack, whole milk or raw milk, that's better. I mean, at schools, they're serving fat-free chocolate and strawberry milk, which is just the amount of sugar at school is unbelievable. So yeah, I would say as moms, I mean, soups, like my kids had a lot of soups in the winter with the thermos. And so that's a great option if they'll eat it. Bone broths, smoothies, if you can pack them.
Now, your cookbook does cover some of this. Does your cookbook cover how to make something like a bone broth?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. It goes through all the traditional foods from meat stocks and bone broths and raw dairy and fermented raw dairy. So making things like kefir cheese, which is delicious. And then soaking and sprouting your nuts. There's no grains and no beans in the book because they're not part of the GAPS diet. And but then how to include the organ meats, making a chicken liver pate. I mean, I served pate for snack the other day at school, and I actually put it on my Instagram. It's about selling it. It's about the engagement with the kids and making it fun and exciting. And, they try things and their eyes light up like, oh my gosh, I like chicken liver pate, when they would never
Hilary,
have tried it.
how do you make pate?
It's
Is it just you're
actually
grinding
so
it up
easy.
with?
You just literally, so we always put bacon in because that makes it like super yummy and delicious. But you literally like saute onions, and you can throw onions and mushrooms and garlic, and then throw in your bacon, or start with your bacon. And then you just throw the chicken livers in, and you can put some seasoning, like we put a little dry mustard or dill. You could do rosemary or thyme. And then you deglaze it with white wine. And literally you throw that in your Cuisinart, add a bunch of butter in there, salt it to taste, and that's your pate. It's so easy.
Oh my goodness, you add
More,
butter
yes, so
to the pate?
yes,
I mean,
like a
everything tastes
big
good with butter.
chunk of. I know butter is like my favorite food. There's like teeth marks in all of our butter sticks in the fridge because I
Ew.
just eat it.
I have little fingernail marks in mine. They like scrape it off, and but you have tooth marks.
Yeah. Well, my son, when he was like the eczema baby, he would reach up and grab. I remember him grabbing like a stick of butter off the counter. Those fats are so good, and it's intuitive to want them. And so, yeah, butter's my favorite.
Now, do you, especially the butter that you get for your school lunches, do you get the raw butter?
We have raw butter, and then we have like cooking butter as well. So like if we're going to cook something, we usually try not to use the raw butter. So.
Well, so some issues that, people could have in cooking this way is time, packability, what we were talking about before, but also food allergies and sensitivities. We've noticed that food allergies have certainly been on the rise for various reasons. And, but how do you work around food allergies, especially as it seems like children and adults are getting more and more allergic to things that are good for them?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have too many that we have to deal with, but we do have like nuts and hemp and gluten, dairy, but it's usually like a few kids. We're blessed with not like off the charts allergies, but it does make for and then we have vegetarians, some vegans. So there are definitely a lot of like, I have to sit and like all my chefs like, oh, it's so confusing with all the different dietary commitments. So you have to be very careful because, some of these kids really have an allergic reaction. So we are working hard to have like a picture of the child and their dietary commitment that's called at our school, and then making sure that we're all in deep communication about every meal every day. But yeah, the allergy thing is kind of, it's interesting. I mean, there's like a pineapple allergy, a mint allergy. There's a lot of different, and then we were just talking earlier about meat allergies. We don't have any of those, but that would be crazy. So,
Yeah.
And dairy, like, a lot of people can eat raw dairy who can't drink pasteurized, ultra pasteurized, homogenized milk. They can have beautiful raw milk. So again, it's about education and people understanding like how foods are denatured, and a lot of it, when you heal the gut, you fix the allergy. So.
Well, you certainly are trying to train parents and school administrators to cook in this particular way through your training academy. So do you want to talk about your training academies and when they are, where they are?
Yeah, they're super fun. I mean, it's really like we're just in this grassroots movement to empower people to learn how to, reclaim their kitchens and joyfully step into the work of feeding themselves, their families, and children, and the next generation of children. So school chefs, moms, school administrators, dads, grandparents, young kids. We get a lot of young. We just had a 13-year-old come through our training academy. We've had a 16-year-old last year with lots of young 20-somethings, people that are really just recognizing there's a better path forward. And it's this 5-night intensive in Topanga, California, where we drop into a beautiful nature setting in nature where they can relax and let go of the day-to-day. And then we go through all of these systems, from soaking and sprouting your nuts and seeds and grains and legumes to making 100% whole grain, locally grown, freshly milled sourdough bread, to dairy or raw dairy, fermented vegetables, meat stocks and bone broths, slow roasted meats, like roasting a chicken, turning it into a bone broth, or making your pork shoulder, your chuck roll, or your homemade roast beef. Then we take people and then we do organ meats. We do deep dive into organ meats and the power of these sacred foods. You know, our ancestors used to be the sacred foods because they were really, they knew the value of them. And so then we take people to the Santa Monica Farmers Market and teach them how to interact with their farmers and ask the right questions and show how easy it is to buy, you know, simple, beautiful foods and make these nutrient-dense meals. And then we have experts that come in from fermentation expert, a sourdough expert, a raw dairy. We have Mark McAfee, who's the owner of the largest raw dairy in the country, comes and talks about raw dairy. So there's, you know, all those questions are answered. All the fear is, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Taken away from people really truly understanding, you know, the difference between raw dairy and pasteurized dairy. And then we have an organ meat expert come in, fermentation. Then we have also lifestyle coaches. From Hilda comes in from the Weston Price or Wise Traditions podcast, and she does her 7 secrets because she, much like Weston Price, has traveled the globe and lived with these indigenous people and tribal people, and she's gained so much knowledge from them. So she comes and shares, and she takes people on sunrise walks. We have Bam Lionheart from Primal Movement, who's teaching us about going back to the way we evolved moving, how we're supposed to move, you know, traditionally how we moved for longevity. We've become so disconnected, just similar to food. Like, you know, we sit in chairs all day and couches, and we're driving all the time, and we're looking at screens, and we're, you know, so the tech neck and all these things and the shoes that we're wearing, you know, like I haven't worn flip-flops since I met Bam because they were my favorite shoes. And he's just like, these are McDonald's for your feet. And I'm like, what? So all these things that we didn't, I mean, I was so in the food world, but I didn't realize like the movement is so powerful and how you can get an incredible workout, but just using your own resistance. And then we have Bob Soulier comes, who's the North American Wim Hof director, and he talks about the power of breath and that tool that we all have with us all the time to regulate our nervous systems. And he also teaches us about cold plunging and our cold adaptation. And so that's quite fun. Like people get in and out of the cold and they challenge themselves. It shows that we can do hard things. You know, it's all of it's voluntary, but so it's really like a it's like the ultimate lifestyle cooking camp that you just leave in 5 days and you're connected to these amazing people and amazing coaches, and you're part of a community now. We say once you're in the soul fam for life. So you're now like you're no longer the lone soldier, because you're going to go back into your communities and feel like the lone soldier again, but you have people that are cheering you on and, you know, providing you support and information in all of these areas. So they would just say to people like, go out and be the ripple. You don't have to aspire to be a school lunch chef. You can just want to take control of your own health. We had someone last year who went back and totally transformed her church. Her husband was a pastor, and they were serving like, you know, basically ultra processed foods. And she went in and started doing the bone broths and making everything from scratch and all the homemade sourdough. And she transformed so many lives in her church. And it's like, it's just super exciting to see the ripple and people going out and taking it and just doing amazing things with it. So we invite people. Everybody's welcome. We have one that's coming up the 3rd through the 8th of August. And actually super exciting, on July 20th through the 25th, we're training 10 people from a public school in Florida. So we're doing a pilot with them where, I mean, this school has invested and said, this is important to us. And we're going to send our chefs and our administrators to learn these values and this foundation of health and take it back into their school and see what they can do with all the information. And their chef, their nutrition, their food service director came last year, and now this year they're sending out like 10 people. So we raised money.
That will be incredible.
Yeah. So that's, hopefully this is like, we can show what's possible. So we're working on, not having to, that we can be free of the dietary guidelines so we can show what's possible, really. And because ultimately, to reverse the trend of chronic illness in this next generation of kids and all the work that Kennedy's doing, like, we have to change the school lunches. It is the way to change. So if we can show that the way that we're feeding these kids is not harming them, it's helping them to stay healthy and vibrant and preventing disease, and it's like, it's it's a cultural shift, right? It's like we have a convenience culture in this country, and we need to get back to creating a beautiful food culture. We have so many amazing farmers, and holding on to those farmers in our local food system. As we lose that, we're beholden to the big guys. So we want to empower people to go local and
Yes. And
yeah.
And this is where I go back to one of my first questions with what would hold back a school or hold back a person from eating in this particular way, or having their school lunch program be this nutritious route. And they may say it is money, but you've said it doesn't seem to be that much different from the public school lunches. It instead is a person. So it's almost like a salary to pay that person or a team to create the food.
Well,
So I guess that would be
and the
change.
dietary guidelines have to shift because they have to be
Yep.
upgraded to the current science.
Yes.
So that is the number one thing that has to change. And then there's so much nuance with every school because some schools don't even have kitchens. I was in Massachusetts where there's a beautiful suburb of Boston, and they built 3 brand new elementary schools and just put in reheating kitchens. So some of these schools aren't even
Whoa.
set up for scratch cooking, or they have a central location. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but it's not impossible by any means. It just has to become a priority, and that investment in time and effort and staffing has to be there. But once you train the people, as chefs can go in and do magical things.
And have you been working with those within HHS to change those guidelines?
Well, Nina Teicholz has been working on that for, I think, nearly a decade. And, we're obviously, I think, the model of what is possible, right? So there's a lot of push to now is the time to really update the science and change the dietary guidelines so that these schools can be cooking nutrient-dense foods and giving proper amounts of protein. I mean, we've lowered our protein, and we're sicker than ever, So it's not the saturated fats, and it's not the meats that are making us sick. It's these ultra-processed foods and this overdose of sugar and chemicals and, this disconnect, and ultimately the cultural or the lack of a culture around food and the priority of food. People are just so disconnected, and we've just normalized feeding kids processed packaged foods. And it's almost like the blinders are on, and just is like a daily habit of this is what's normal, this is what's okay, but it's not okay. And we're seeing that now with our health in this country.
For sure. Well, Hilary, how can people find you?
Schooloflunch.com. They can go there and can see all about what we do at the school and the training academy. And then I'm most active on Instagram, which is just at School of Lunch. And then some Facebook under Hilary Boynton. And then my cookbook is the Heal Your Gut Cookbook. So, but
that's right. It's the Heal Your Gut Cookbook, nutrient-dense recipes for intestinal health using the GAPS diet.
Yeah.
I had read some samples here and there, and some friends had shown me the book, and I actually just ordered my copy.
Ooh, yay.
I should have had it on hand for when I met you in person.
It's very interesting. Like there's a girl in my, a young woman in my kitchen who's gone back to do GAPS for herself, and it's so life-changing because you go back to like such basics that you really are in tune with your microbes. As crazy as that sounds, like we're made up of more bacteria cells than we are human cells. Like our microbiome is teeming with bacteria and fungi and viruses and parasites, all these things. And we don't think about that, right? But we need to be in balance with what lives within us and around us. And when you go back to very simple, nourishing foods, you're so in touch, and your body responds so immediately to not being, the inflammation, I think, that we're constantly causing as we put in these, ultra processed foods. It becomes normal to feel like low energy, or I just think people don't know what it feels like to feel good. And so when you all of a sudden slow things down and make it really simple, and your body starts to respond, you have this new relationship with yourself and what feels really good. And so not that
Mhm.
everybody's going to go back to like really intense healing protocol, but you can take the principles and just do any part of it and start to incorporate, even if you're like, I just think I'm going to like, you know, incorporate bone broth, or maybe I'm going to research raw dairy, or maybe I'm going to find my egg farmer. And so you just start where you are and just do one thing at a time and just start to, because you can't do it all at once. You'll go crazy. Us moms have enough going on, and there's so much to manage and to keep our kids healthy and strong. And so you just start. Like, that's what I encourage people to do, is to just start getting back in your kitchen and prioritizing real food, and one step at a time, and then find your people and keep sharing with other people. It's like a movement. I feel like I was just saying the Training Academy started out to empower people, and now it's just become this movement where people take it and they are doing stuff in their communities. And so it's really beautiful to see. So,
Well, if the average American citizen could do one thing to combat the corruption that we see in today's society, what would it be?
I would say speak up. I mean, you have to let the government officials and even the schools go straight to the school and just say, this is not okay. But you can't really go in like a bull in a china shop. I tried that and it didn't work. So you really have to meet them where they are and just say, like, obviously things are changing in this country. People are waking up, and we understand that we're in a crisis of a chronic disease epidemic, and we need to start supporting our children. And how can I help as a parent, or how can we start to make some changes? And even I remember Sally Fallon saying to me, literally, like, it had to be like 17 years ago. She did a talk in our town, and I remember driving her to go do a talk to this hockey team. And I was like in the car alone with her. I just met her. And I was like, I think I'm going to try and change the school lunches. And she was like, I would just like feed your family well and pack your school lunches. Like, it's such a uphill battle. And here I am, like, however many years later, still trying to change school lunches. But it's really like, I think, leading by example and modeling this for other people is where you start, and do what you can in your own home. Take control of your own health first and your kids' health, and then start to inquire and push a little bit on those buttons or those doors, and saying, like, I really want to help. How can we help? And get more parents involved, because it is grassroots. And then if the dietary guidelines change, we'll have more freedom to introduce more nutrient-dense foods. But it's like keeping the conversations going, not giving up, because it's so easy to just throw the towel in, because there's a lot of pushback from school administrators. So you just have to, that's where the Training Academy, we keep, infusing these parents with the energy to, like, just keep going. Don't give up. And things will change. And especially, private schools have even more agency to make change. And it's appealing to people's, like, getting to their heart space and saying, and so it starts there. Start wherever you can to make a change. And then hopefully as more and more schools change, then the public school systems will follow suit, and we'll all live happily ever after with really well-fed, nourished children, giving birth to a healthy next generation of children. That is the goal.
Yes.
We're at a moment where it's time, and we really need to do this for our kids. I mean, I got emotional about it on another podcast, because it's just like, us moms are so overwhelmed, and a lot of this managing the health of our kids falls on our shoulders. And so it has to become a family affair. And the more you talk about it in your community and empower people, not everyone's going to jump on board, but you will find your tribe of people. And, the best you can do is just keep showing up every day for your kids and for the community, and being that united front, right, at school and at home, and just saying no to the status quo. I mean, just show up with oranges for your kids' soccer game. Just do that. Or water for them, or bone broth, or whatever, tea or something that's not Gatorade, and pizza and donuts and candy. It's like, please just be the one that's just like, nope, well, we're just gonna have oranges, like, yay, just leave it at that, because kids they'll respond. It's not like, but the more they expect all these ultra processed things. So we're the gatekeepers, right? We are the only people there between our children and the medical system. So we have to be fierce, but then we have to stay joyful. That's why I'll end with this. I added joyful to joyfully disrupting the trend of chronic illness in this next generation of kids. And that's where we have to like laugh along the way and laugh at ourselves and just be in the work together, because it's so upside down that it's just like, you know, if you take it all so seriously, you'll go completely insane. So we just have to like be together in community and sing and dance in our kitchens and, you know, do the best we can.
I need to have you come into my kitchen, help me dance. Maybe I just need to say to my husband, please just let's dance together in the kitchen. Because it has been, let me tell you, our kitchen is the most unromantic, unjoyful place because I don't inherently love cooking.
You got to bring
hard.
back the joy.
It's always been hard.
Yeah. You got to come to the training academy. You'll be like all lit up and on fire.
No.
You should come.
I know. So I need to.
You
I should. And I should have my neighbors over and say, let's just have fun together and cook nutritious foods together.
Yeah. Or just be like, come on over for dinner. And then when they say, like, can I bring anything? Say, yes. Could you handle X, Y, and Z? Because sometimes it's like, that's why we don't do dinner parties, because it's too overwhelming. But just if someone's like, you know, can I bring in the vegetable or the salad or dessert, whatever it is, like, yes, just ask for help. And then it's so doable.
I love having people over. It's the everyday dinner that is just like,
well, cook once, eat several times, right? Like, so like learn to slow roast a pork shoulder or chuck roll or a couple chickens. And then you have like leftovers and you don't have to like reinvent the wheel every day. It really is like we keep things stocked in there.
I didn't think of a couple chickens at one time. Yeah. That's actually a really good idea.
If you're going to roast one, roast two. You can even like freeze the meat if you need to in like little baggies or whatever. You can eat it that night. Then you can have chicken salad or chicken tacos or chicken soup, like whatever. You can morph it into all sorts of things. So yeah, once you have the protein and usually, again, the proteins are like a few minutes to put together and involve the family. Like if your husband is like, you know, not interested in cooking much, be like, can you take the pork shoulder out of the freezer and remember to do that, and then like salt it on Tuesday, and then I'll cook it Wednesday or whatever it is, you know? So it's like those systems of talking about the weekly nourishment where, because, you know, how many times you're like, shoot, I forgot to take it out of the freezer. And then it's like, okay, well, what are we going to have now, you know? But if you have somebody else holding that container, then you don't have to think about that.
But Hilary, that takes forethought.
No, that's what we have to get to. We have to get to that. Where it's like Sunday, we're like, okay, how are we going to feed the family this week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I'm like that. I'm like a fly by the seat of I don't have the whole weekly plan at all. I've never been able to do that. Like those people that can do that, more power to them. But I'm just like, I'll open the fridge like, what are we going to do? Or I'll go to the market and I'll get inspired or whatever. But it's, again, like you don't have to, it doesn't have to be like Instagram worthy or like Food Network. It can just be like, oh, we have tri-tip left over from last night. Or, oh, we have chicken left over. We're going to take this beautiful tortilla and I am going to put together some cheese and salsa and creme fraiche on top or guacamole. And that will have, you know, tacos for dinner. So,
did you say you have tripe left over?
No, tri-tip, not tripe. I'm not there yet. Our organ meat specialist, she does tripe. I'm like, ooh, I'm not quite there yet.
Oh.
But I know. But it's like those things that you think you're never going to do. And then all of a sudden you're like picking the padding off the feet in your bone broth. And you're like, how did I get here? But like, it's like really rewarding. You know, you're just like so connected to your food somehow. But we just are not used to it unless you grew up like with a grandmother or a mom or dad from another country. Like it's just not normal to be, you know, cooking nose to tail, but it's becoming more of a thing. So it's becoming more and more normalized. So, and that's what we need to do is like ride that wave and keep that trend going and connecting people to the fact that an animal lost its life to nourish you. So you might as well use the whole thing, right? And none of us can get out of this act of eating unscathed. Like whether you're a vegan or a vegetarian or a carnivore or paleo, whatever you're doing, there is death involved in eating. Like something must die. Like when you're harvesting wheat or corn or soy, millions of animals are being killed. And, you know, in those combines, like bunny rabbits and birds and lizards, and not to mention the soil, the microbes, like things are getting destroyed. And so you can't be, you know, you can't extract yourself from death. to nourish yourself. So we just have to step into the act with
Yes.
gratitude and really, really look at that we're like something has died. So you really want to eat all of it if you can,
Hilary, it's been so good having you. It's been a really fun conversation. I really hope that I can have you back on again, especially to hear what happens with the public school down in Florida.
Yeah.
That would be an
Fingers
absolute
crossed, right?
fascinating.
Yeah. I'd love to come back. So it's an exciting time. It's a time that things are moving. So we got to just keep positive.
Yes. Well, thank you, Hilary. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe to, and share our podcasts. I'll see you next week.